Here we are, another Sunday at the Unitarian Church of Montreal. Sunday, April 27th, 2014. The Sunday after Easter Sunday. And I'm just getting started with my alternative spiritual practice of protesting against Unitarian Universalist injustices and abuses of various kinds. Primarily the anti-religious intolerance and bigotry of the subset, I should say, of the atheist faction of Unitarian Universalists. Not all atheist Unitarian Universalists engage in anti-religious intolerance and bigotry, but unfortunately a certain number of them do, and thus make quite a number of Unitarian Universalist welcoming congregations, anything but welcoming to God-believing people. So that's one of the main issues that I protest. And the other one is clergy misconduct. In my case, they overlap because Reverend Ray Drennan of the Unitarian Church of Montreal basically attacked my monotheistic religious beliefs. He falsely and maliciously labeled an interreligious event that I'd organized as a cult. He also labeled me psychotic, or at least he labeled my religious experience that inspired that interreligious event as your psychotic experience, and angrily insisted that I seek professional help, to use his exact words. So the fact that he labeled this experience itself as a psychotic experience and demanded that I seek professional help is an indication to me that he thought I was seriously mentally ill. And on top of that, he belittled and maligned my quite, largely mainstream monotheistic religious beliefs by labeling them as being nothing but silliness and fantasy. So in the case of Reverend Ray Drennan, his anti-religious bigotry amounts to non-sexual clergy misconduct, abuse of power, abuse of verbal and psychological abuse, basically.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Keeping them on their toes.
Oh, yeah.
So, let's continue to circulate it. Just got a friendly comment from a passerby on one who's obviously seen my protest before, judging from the way he asked how's it going. I'm quite sure I've seen him before. It's just sort of a question based on him having seen me before. It's a little windy. In fact, I just see that my picket signs, at least two of them, are blown down here. So I shall try and put them back up again in a way that's a bit more stable. Not always easy. Anyhow, got some interesting developments. It came to my attention within the last week or so that the UUA Board of Trustees, at the last UUA board meeting early in April, around April 10th, I believe, voted to deliver a second UUA institutional apology to victims of UU clergy misconduct. And I think they're also broadening it out to other professional misconduct on the part of UUA staff, I presume, and other UU professionals, as it were, church professionals. I can see how, people like music directors and chaplains and other people who aren't exactly full-on Unitarian Universalist clergy might be guilty. Well, I shouldn't say might be, definitely are. I mean, I know for a fact that a certain number of Unitarian Universalist religious educators, i.e. Sunday school teachers, Unitarian Universalist music directors and so on, are guilty of professional misconduct, including perhaps especially sexual misconduct. There are even Unitarian Universalist religious educators, also known as Sunday school teachers, who are guilty of, to use a phrase from Stikeman Elliott lawyer, Mr. Marc-Andre Coulombe, they're guilty of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. So it's actually, on the one hand, good to see that after years of stalling and refusing to do so, the UUA has realized that it is necessary to deliver a second institution apology, because the first one that was delivered at the 2000 UUA GA in Nashville, basically the first Unitarian Universal Church in Nashville, related to that in that they had a quite serious clergy sexual misconduct problem. So I expect that they played a significant role in that first apology being delivered during the Nashville UUAGA. But the fact of the matter is that that apology in the years following was basically proven to not be worth the breath it was spoken with or the paper it was written on. In spite of pledging to bend towards justice and to provide restorative justice to victims of Unitarian Universalist clergy sexual misconduct, the UUA did nothing of the sort. The UUA never provided any real restorative justice to clergy sexual misconduct victims, nor did it really truly bend towards justice as it pledged to. Yes, they did, some, on paper reforms and refinements of clergy misconduct policies and procedures, but then they proceeded to disregard their own policies and procedures and so on.
I don't know if you remember me.
Oh, I remember your face, yes.
Yeah, and you're still here.
Still here, yep.
Well, you are a persistent man.
Yep.
Good for you.
Well,
But that isn't even the same minister anymore.
you're right, but it's a problem that the church is responsible for, and they've never dealt with it. That's why I'm persistent, because they're persistent in refusing
So they've
to...
never come and talked to you about it?
No, quite the opposite. And on top of that, the new minister, when she came in,
Diane Rowland.
right, when she came in, like even before she came in, I knew that Ray Drennan was resigning.
Yeah.
I knew that there was an interim minister, and then I knew a new one was coming in. Well, I actually tried to get Peter Bulata, who was the interim minister. You probably knew.
He was the...
Yes, he was the
Good
interim.
for him.
Yeah. Well, good for him, except for the fact that he did nothing
Well, he
to
might
resolve.
not have had he might not have had the authority to.
Right. That is my point. If Peter did not have the authority to try and settle this dispute, it's because the leadership of the church is blockading.
You know what? It's too bad.
It is too bad.
It is too bad, but I've got to go in.
Okay, we'll get talking.
Nice to see
well,
you.
nice to see you too.
My name is Cheryl.
Yeah, I think I even vaguely remember your name.
I don't remember
You mentioned
yours.
Robin Edgar.
Robin.
Yeah. No, I remember your face. Anyway, to make a long story short, Reverend Rollert herself has now done things that are worthy of protest.
So you got a new cause.
No, I just got an additional cause. They keep heaping the problems up. Nice to see you, Cheryl. Yeah. So yes, that's former member of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, whose face I remember. And we just had an interesting chat about my persistence, and that she actually congratulated me on my persistence. And as I like to point out to people who congratulate me on my persistence, or who on the other hand condemn me for being persistent in protesting against the Unitarian injustices and abuses, there's really only one reason why I am persistent, and that is because Unitarian Universalists are incredibly persistent in refusing to deal responsibly with the issues I'm protesting against. I would end my protest if the Unitarians actually dealt responsibly with what I'm protesting against, but they refuse to do so. And another thing, that Cheryl mentioned, a common thing that is brought up by Unitarian Universalists, especially those who want to, try and deny that there's a problem. The new minister, there is a new minister, the minister that I originally had my problems with, Reverend Ray Drennan, left several years ago, and he was replaced by Reverend Diane Rollert. Even if there wasn't the slightest problem in terms of Reverend Diane Rollert, which is not the case, I would still have plenty of reason to continue my protest, because the church as an institution has refused to deal responsibly with the reasons I'm protesting. But the fact of the matter is that Reverend Diane Rollert herself, very early in her ministry here, did some incredibly foolish things that sought to force an end to my protest, and thus has become, part of the problem herself, a very significant part of the problem. Because it's bad enough that she did absolutely nothing to try and resolve this problem. As Cheryl noted in our conversation, this might be because the board of the church has prohibited Reverend Diane Rollert from trying to resolve this dispute. But that does not change the fact that if that was the case, if she had been prohibited by the board from trying to resolve this conflict, well, she could have just stayed right out of it. But instead, when I sent her an email letting her know that I felt that it was almost certain that she had been lied to by church leadership about why I'm protesting and so on, and it would be a good idea for her to hear my side of the story towards the end of trying to resolve this conflict, instead of agreeing to enter into dialogue with me, she pretended that a warning I put in the letter about protest actions I could take was a threat against her safety, and there was no such thing. By the way, you may find this hilarious, but the UUA, not the church locally, but the big head office in Boston, in June of 2012, they sent me a legal letter accusing me of the crime of blasphemous libel against the church.
Really?
I consider that a wonderful compliment.
Wow.
Yeah, it's on the internet if you want to go look for it. Yeah, just look for blasphemous libel Unitarian. So yes. What do we got here? Anyhow, it's kind of nice to have former member of the church actually congratulating me on my persistence in protesting against the issues I'm protesting against. I get that quite a lot from the public. One thing that Unitarian Universalists don't seem to realize is that the overwhelming response of the public to my protest is supportive. I'm not saying there's an overwhelming response in the sense that most people do pass by and don't indicate what they feel one way or the other. Like all of these cars, they're not indicating what they feel about my protest, either positive or negative. But the fact of the matter is that when someone actually does indicate what they feel about my protest, the overwhelming majority of people express positive and supportive words, and only a small minority condemn my protest. And the ones that do condemn it are usually fairly ignorant types who think that it's some sort of crime to protest against the church or something along those lines. And interestingly enough, of those who do express disapproval and condemnation, when I'm able to explain to them the exact reasons why I'm protesting and what it's all about, they actually change their minds and agree that, well, actually, no, you do have a good reason to protest. So, as I said, it's the icing on the cake to have a former member of the Unitarian Church of Montreal congratulate me on my persistence. But, it bears repeating that the only reason I'm persistent protesting is because Unitarian Universalists are so obstinately stubborn in refusing to deal responsibly with the anti-religious intolerance and bigotry that I'm protesting against, the clergy misconduct that I'm protesting against, and various other injustices and abuses that I'm protesting against. If Unitarian Universalists responsibly dealt with the causes for my protest, I wouldn't feel the need to protest anymore, would I? So all I'm really doing is going along for the ride. And the other thing that I think is worth pointing out is that all I'm really doing here is going to church on Sunday a little bit differently. Reverend Deborah Pope-Lance, who was an expert in Unitarian Universalist clergy misconduct and advocate for victims of Unitarian Universalist clergy misconduct, long ago recognized or called this protest of mine as your alternative spiritual practice, recognizing that this act of protest on Sunday mornings is essentially another spiritual practice, another way of going to church, as it were. And this was like years ago. I mean, I'm talking, I'd say, more than a decade ago now. This would have been in the late 90s or early 2000s when Reverend Deborah Pope-Lance used the term alternative spiritual practice to describe my protest here. So that goes back a while. More recently, well, even that's not that recent now. We're going back, I'd say, 4 years, give or take a year. The Reverend Gail Seavey from the First Unitarian Universalist Church in Nashville referred to my protest activity, and I think she also included my blogging and so on, as prophetic work, and expressed appreciation for my prophetic work. So again, quite a compliment from a Unitarian Universalist minister with respect to my protest.